Well, I am Paul Bechtold, the third son of Mr. and Mrs. Paul Wilhelmine. Been born in a country village, Byton, in 1910. And I had been living there until the war came. And I learned my trade at Dad's workshop, at a blacksmith shop. And I learned my trade there and worked as a blacksmith until 1935, when electricity came in. Then my job went all down. The blacksmith shop was cut out, and I had to take up night school, electric welding and oxy welding. I had to do night school for 2 years. In the same time, I bought the 2 planes and done the practical work myself home at the workshop. By 1935, our country had changed terrible with that revolution, and everything was nationalized. Even the house you owned was sitting not more on your own ground. That ground belonged to the state. And we had to go to work to the communes, and we had to work piecework all the time, and get only 2 pies a year. One in May with cash, and another pie usually in January, end of the year, and you get with all sorts of things pied, whatever the commune was growing in it, and grain, all sorts of grain, barley, oats, a little bit of wheat, and all sorts of things, corn. Yeah, well, I was about 26 years of age when I married.
What was your first wife's name?
Olga.
Did you have any kids?
2. Frida and Edward.
Boy and a girl.
Don't know where they are either. And of course, it happened that way. I would have risked to go back there. But, you see, when the Germans, that time, I could have saw they won the war, the way they went, and I thought, well, when they find them, they're going to bring them there too, So, all right, we go there and prepare ourselves, and then the family is going to come. But everything backfired. Terribly backfired. You see, they didn't lost the war, and they was running for their life back home. And everyone was telling me that, oh, you can't do that, you don't go there yet, because you migrated here, and they got 1 bullet for you. And so I had to make a decision. And so I don't know whether they really alive there or not. And never could. Red Cross, that I never let the Red Cross work there. They could not find out nothing while I was still back home. And anyhow, and that's, and through that situation, I sort of what you call take the outs or what, and that, and that I married again and came here because I couldn't go home. Because firstly they put a lot of Germans behind the barbed wire as soon as the war started. The real, what I didn't trust, sort of, you know. But I always kept my tongue behind my teeth because I knew you can't talk. Because I lost 2 brothers, I lost a brother-in-law, dead, too many from the family to lose. He was frightened to talk even to next door neighbor. You don't know whether he's a dobber or what. See? And if you talk something against that regime and especially against Stalin, you're goner. You're goner. The government puts their hands on everything. Whether you got a big factory or small factory, it wasn't anymore yours. It was ours. You could say ours. That's why everything belongs to you. But you never could say that belongs to me. See? They come from the cities and I say, oh, that's all yours, that's all yours. Yeah, yours. How far? You see, they write how much wheat you got to deliver from that collective, from that commune. They got to deliver so many wheat, so many barley, so many oats, corn. What stays over, that then divided to our working days, what you make through the year. And whatever comes of that, you get. Sometimes if you had a big crop, you get more. If you got a lousy crop, you live pretty lousy. You sometimes looking to get through with that you have your own bread, daily bread. Oftentimes we had to mix barley, make it to eatable flour, you know, and or partly maize or corn, you call it, no, and mix that with wheat flour and make our bread like that. Make sure that it lasted through the year. It was always a very, very battle. And of course you couldn't complain to nobody. Because the first thing was they put a ration as the top men in that commune. There wasn't a German from our Germans. Was the Russian was there, and he had always the last say. See, and you was allowed to have 1 cow. If you had 10 cows, you had to give 9 in the commune, take them to the commune, and you can keep on for yourself, for your own living. But even from that, you had to deliver so much milk per year, and they take it to the city. And even the calf that cow might bring, they put on meat tax, and you had to deliver so much meat. And what we had to do was, my cow had a bull, and his had the heifer. Well, the heifer, you always can have another cow for somebody, you know. In the family, it might be your daughter get married, and you give them that heifer, and they have a cow there. And if it's a bull, we kill it between us, and we had to deliver so much meat for the two, and what is left, what was it, ours again. Everything what is left. That's how it was. There was no private land anymore. You see, my dad, he had a workshop and land. But when they nationalized, they started in 1933, and by 35 they had it through. And we all had to go and work to that commune. And the whole community that in our village, about 1,000 people was living there, mainly farmers in it, and of course farmers, workers in it. And we had all to go to work to that commune, you know, and like Dad's workshop was pulled down, and was another 3 blacksmiths in that village, and they had the same fight. They had to was pulled down, and they put them all in one big shed, and then we had to work there for the commune. Whatever they repair, they had to, machinery and everything. That's what they call commune. And of course, when the war started, then they wouldn't take Germans in the war, and but they would take us to work on defense, digging trenches, anti-tank trenches, and that sort of thing. And of course, as the war continued, and the Germans sort of drove the Russians further back and back, then they made us walk to the station, all the Germans from the Crimea, to the stations, and they was reckoned they're gonna cart us to a safer place. Okay. There's Australia there. Crimea is here. Oh, where is it now? Here. That's it. It's on 1 kilometer is only connected with Crimea with the Ukraine. It's on a small sort of passage there. You see, it's got all those countries here around the Black Sea. Bulgaria, Turkey, and Romania, they were all on the sort of around the Black Sea there.
What about your mum? What did she used to do?
Oh, Mom had to do a lot with the kids, and then not only even that, she had a bit trouble with her eyes, and one eye burst, and everything ran out, and she couldn't see on that eye. She was blind on one eye.
Did she
After
have
that,
glaucoma? Did she have glaucoma?
could have been. I used to call it trachoma back home. Trachoma, I suppose it was that kind of thing. But she still had the other eye, but she was in the train too when that was carted out. I don't know where they finished that. My oldest brother was still there, and I don't know really the youngest brother whether he was taken off or not, because he was already married and he lived from us about 30 miles in another German colony too. But I don't know whether they was in that part of trains or my other trains, I don't know. But I cut them all out from the Crimea. So he must have got there somewhere too. But I don't know whether he ever was taken to the dig in the trenches or not, because he was almost 5 years younger than I. And I was taken, you see. And but the trouble is a lot got killed there as well. You never know whether what happened to him. And so I couldn't say nothing about him. He had about 2 children already. And so Heinrich had 2 children, him and his wife. And Alexander, they had 2 children. And Christian had 3 children. But because they all was in that room. You see, some might was in that train and some in the next train. But we say only from our 3 was at least 3 or 4 trains. And there wasn't passenger trains, but cattle truck trains, where they could shut the door and lock it. I don't know really how far I went in the other Russian part when they took us off the train and send us to that work, digging those trenches instead. And of course, when the Russians overran that part where we was working, there was thousands of people working. And then they separated us all, and because we was Germans, they was reckoned, you don't belong here. We cart you to Germany, and that's your home at least. You gotta go there to live. So I agreed on it, and when we find the rest of the family, we'll send them home. And of course, they settled us in Austria. And in Austria, I was working again in a factory, stamping out the rollers for tanks, the rollers for the tanks. Mm-hmm. Them caterpillar things, they called it. And until the factory was smashed, and then I had to go, so that they sent us to the border as a civil or civil army or something, and then to stop the Tito coming across the border. They didn't want Tito. They want rather the English coming in and occupy Austria. But the Russians, they went much faster than the English, and of course they occupied half Austria before the English came in from the other end, from Italy way, you see. And course, then I had to work sort of as a prisoner of war, I called it. And I had to go to work to a blacksmith shop where I met Werner, who is now my stepson, I thought. And he was doing his apprenticeship there, and that's how we met. And when I was released from the camp, I joined his family, and of course I found out in the meantime that Austria was not my homeland, and I could not stay there. I must shift, because I could understand every word I say about us. And so I asked Mrs. Kalz whether she would migrate with me, because I marry you, and we'd take your 3 kids and off we go. And it took a while before she could make up her mind, but when she did, then I already had my name down to migrate, and I went then and registered the kids as well, and the wife, and I registered them at the Australian embassy before we even was married, because I knew it gonna take a while. In the meantime, we got married, and it took about at least 9 months before they finally sent me words that we can migrate. And we did then migrate. And we arrived here on the 15th of July, 1949, and we were sent to the camp to Bendigo. And over there we were for 3 weeks, and then from there they sent me to Bendigo, because they was reckoned the first job what I find for me I must keep for 2 years. And so they put me on here cleaning streets, and that's what I done for 2 years, cleaning streets in Bendigo. And when that time was over, I went back to my trade and started with the Green Brothers engineering shop the first 5 years, and then they sold out. Then I joined the railways, in which I worked until my retirement for 21 years. And now I'm retired, and my age is 87, just almost.
Still going strong.
Why I was choosing Australia?
Yeah.
Well, I went to the American embassy first, because the Lutheran church thought they can help me to go to America with 4 children. You see, and when I went there, and I said, no, we don't take families with 4 children. We take only families with 2 children. And I said, oh well, too bad luck. And I told then my Lutheran church there that it won't work, because they don't take in with 4 children. And I even didn't know that was on. You see, and yeah, that's what I told me, I said. And then we could have gone to or what they call that other South American state, Brazil. And Gerda was reckon I rather would go to a place where they English speaking people instead. You know, they got all Spanish. They all speak Spanish there. And she said that that gonna make much harder for us to learn the language, while the English is the closest to German. And then I said, what's about Australia then? Because that I had pamphlets out, and I was looking for tradesmen too. So I went then to the Australian and asked them about migration, and I said we got 4 children. Paul was already born then, and whether they would type, oh yes, and I say one is just finishing his apprentice, and he is a full tradesman, like Werner. He just was finishing his, in 49 he was just finishing his apprenticeship. And anyhow, so I was real glad to have us. And of course Gerda was reckoned for us it's better to go to a country where they speak in English, and she said if they eat bread there, we will eat bread there. That's how she looked at it. And anyhow, so that's how we decided to come to Australia. You see, we was a big family back home. There was 9 of us. The oldest was a sister, Katerina. She was born 1901. And then was Christian, 1903 rather. And then was Christian, 1906. Then was Heinrich, 1908. And I was Paul, the 3rd boy, 1910. And then was Alexander, 1913. And then was Oscar, 1915, and then was another 4 girls after that. That was Matilda, Ottilia, and Nellie. It was 4 girls and 5 boys.
It's a big family.
But of course, since they carted us out, I never ever could come in touch with those families. I don't know what happened to them. There is a lot of people who lived in Sydney, around Sydney, who was in the same category, and nobody ever got word what I really done to them, or whether they're still alive or not. It's hard to say.
When was the last time you saw him?
Oh, last time I saw him, well, the war started about 1940, I think. Started the war between Germany and Russia. And I think it must have been about in 1941 when they took us off the train, because the war went forwards very quick with the Germans. You see, it seems they was driving them pretty fast, and as they came closer towards the Crimea, they was cutting us out from Crimea. so we don't get cut off, you see. And so they carted all the Germans out from the Crimea and somewhere in the other part of Russia. But where it was, don't know. They just took us off there from the train and after that never ever seen it. Never heard of it or anything.
So how come they split you up from the rest of the family?
They took us off the train to work on those trenches.
Oh,
And the others that I continued with the train, I don't know where they went. You see that there was quite a few train loads because there was quite a lot of Germans in the Crimea. There was 3 German colonies, only each one about 3 kilometers apart. And they occupied a huge part of land there around them. And because they always good farmers and they was pretty rich farmers too. They, you know, they were settled on very best land. Very good. Our village was the 9 Byton, then another one just the same size, Kiabak, and then was the third one was a little bit smaller, Alabash. There was 3 German colonies, only about 3 kilometers each apart or so, you know. And the nearest station to our place was Byton, and the capital city was Simferopol. Simferopol was the capital city. I suppose it's still the capital city there in the Crimea.
And what did your dad do? He was a blacksmith?
Yeah, he was a blacksmith. And I learned the trade in his workshop. Yeah, I done my apprenticeship in his workshop. And so did my oldest brother, Christian. He was a blacksmith too. And Heinrich used to work the land. But then in 1935, no, not 1935, in 1937, when I think myself that the Russians knew there's gonna be a war with Germany. And they sort of collect a lot of Germans what I didn't trust. And of course Heinrich was arrested, and so was Alexander was arrested, and so was the brother-in-law, Katharina's husband, was arrested. Not the same night, but in different nights. They come in midnight and arrest them and take them away, the KGB. And there never was a court case or anything. They're just 3 people in uniforms, KGB uniforms. They come in the court room and they read out only the sentences, not the court case, but they read just sentences for each one. And of course, Dad was shot around the 21st of August, 1937, and Alexander was shot almost in the same time, and Heinrich was sent 10 years hard labor, and so was Reinhold. the husband of the older sister, Katerina, was sent for 10 years too to the hard labor camp. Never heard of him.
How come why did they get shot? Do you
I-
know why? Do you know why they were shot?
No, they wouldn't say nothing. I went to the in Simferopol to that was a great big jail there. And I went there and wanted to find out how that is. And the first one I asked, he said, "Oh, I'll find out for you." And he went away, and then another one came, and he said, "Whom you want to see?" And I told him whom I want to see, and he said to me, "Dogs must have dogs' deaths. And if you're gonna hang around much longer here, we chuck you in there too." And so I had a fright, and I just went out, and I never went back there again anymore. Because there was already two brothers. The brother-in-law was there, and then two brothers. I was already. And you don't know what's for the best. Because that was a funny regime that anybody who never lived under a communism, I don't know what it's like. It's just, you're just a slave. You gotta do your daily work every day. And if you're sick, you gotta have a good proof that you're sick. And otherwise, you just gotta work, and satisfied with your 2 pies a year. And you can't say nothing. Because your side is not a word. You say that I don't listen in that system. But we had to put up with it. Everyone was forced into those communes. They never was voluntary. It was all forced in. The ones who wouldn't obey properly, and that's, I suppose, a little bit what I think my dad might was too. And then the brother, because he was an accountant, he might spoke what he shouldn't speak. And the other brother, I never can understand. He was working on the land all his lifetime. He never was in politics. He never was nothing. And yet, somehow they arrested him. You never know for what for. They wouldn't say nothing. The KGB just comes midnight, and my brother and 2 doors another one, and 2 doors another one. They used to do up to 10 in one night. And then they come another night again, and another 10, and like that. And just whiz them off. And nobody ever could find out why and what did I do. But we can only assume that they might, because they was not satisfied with that system. And I might said something against Stalin or something, and that's one thing you couldn't do. Impossible to tell something wrong, that Stalin is doing something wrong or something this. You can't say that, because he was the man who done everything right. You only got to believe it and accept it. That's how it works. It's the worst system I ever experienced in my life. And I wish it never ever comes back again. But you never know, that revolution happened that time because it was too big unemployment. and the royalty, the Tsar, they wouldn't do enough to listen to the workers, and the king ordered the army, and then they shot about 2,000 people down, and of course then the leader of that union, they said next time they're gonna come with guns too, and of course it went by a few years, and that happened that way. You see, when the First World War finished, they all was sick of it. They all was bitten, one bit another. England, Germany, England, and with the Russian, and they was fighting one another there. And anyhow, because I was then only 5 years old, but I can remember a bit of it. And of course, that all played a good hand for the revolutionaries. And when they went home all, they come and took on Russia, the Russian government, you see, and they won. And there was, I still can remember, there was people in uniforms with a pointy bloody hat and big star on the front, red star, and half of them just in civil clothes, but they all had guns. And of course the Tsar fled, but he didn't fled far enough, and they fled there in a cellar somewhere, in a bunker, and that's where they caught them, and they all had been shot out. No more royalty can come back in Russia, you see. And of course, in the beginning, they announced all the land is nationalized. Nobody owns any more land. Nobody can buy or sell land. But then they gave to per family. It all depends how many workers you got in the family. They give you so much land, and you work that land. And that went on like that, still private. Everyone worked for himself, still private, until 1933. But that's when the commune started, when the collectives, they called it. They called it the big ones, beside a big farmer with a castle. They disappeared. What they done with them, only God knows. But anyhow, all that land I had, they used to call that sovkhoz. Sovkhoz, that was run by the government. And all the other people who had their own land, that was all nationalized, you see. And all the fences was pulled out, and they made big barracks, and they called that kolkhoz. Kolkhoz. You see, we used to call it collective. And you had to work in that collective there. Just 2 buys a year, and that was it, and you couldn't say nothing. You was even afraid to talk to your neighbor sometimes. You didn't know whether he might be a dog. Yeah.
How'd you and Grandma meet?
Gerda? Oh, well, she was sent with her 3 kids to Austria. And it happened that I landed in the city of Villach, the same where I was. And that's where I met Werner first, because I had to go working in that blacksmith shop, and I was a blacksmith there, and then, cause through Werner, I met, and his mother lied, and that's how we met. I had a bunch of flowers, and I had a packet of biscuits, which was a very something special, because you couldn't get any much in those days in the shops. And I had a packet of biscuits from a English soldier, and I brought it there. And especially Lothar, he was only a kid, about 3-year-old or something, 2.5, 3-year-old or something. And he always asked, "Uncle, can I have one more biscuit?" When I came to in their place where I was living. And of course, because I wanted to migrate, and I would have liked to go with somebody I knew, from here, to join me. And that's why I asked her then whether she was willing to migrate, and I marry her before we go, and see what we can find better. The shop where I went, and cause Werner, he saw me there, he used to have his sucker there himself, and he saw me, that bloke in the German uniform, and got only 3 potatoes and baked them on the forge, and that's with little bit salt. It was his dinner, and of course he told that to his mother, and then his mother started to send me a bit of soup. So I have that with the potatoes, what I had every day, because there was nothing much you could buy in those days. There was nothing available. It was very strict rations on it. Because I put her, people who said I put her, she was unconscious or fainted or what, and I put her in another truck, and Werner and the other kids in another truck, you see, and then she lost them. And wherever they came, about 500 kilometers further on, from where they was fleeing from, you see, that was about 100 kilometers around Berlin, and they was terribly bombing everything there. And of course, they fled. And of course, wherever they came, she came to it, and she couldn't find her kids. And I said, "Oh, they must be in another truck," you see. And of course, in those days you couldn't, nothing was working, you see. Besides, the media wasn't working properly, and nothing was working properly. And of course, and it took her almost 9 months before she found them again. And Werner was already in a camp where Russia was collecting young boys to work in Russia, German boys, and I said, you broke our cities, you're gonna build them. See, and I took him to Russia. Well, he was already in that camp, and 'cause they helped her to go under the wire into the camp, under the wire. The inside was helping her. You see, they had the post only one here and one a mile away there, and that, you know. And anyhow, she got in, and she got Werner, and under the wire and off again. She could have gone easy. She could have had been easy shot here and Werner, you know, but she was lucky. I told her she was very, very lucky. And she got out with Werner. But the other, because Marian and Lothar, they was still together, and one farmer took them to his place. He wanted only the girl, and Marian said, Mom said, where I go, he go. You see, like that. Because they was a lot younger then, you know. And anyhow, the farmer said, oh, okay, we take the vows. See, and then they took the vows, see. And of course afterwards, when the media start working and the Wallaces start working and that, after the war was finished, then she only found them, you see. And of course they was all together, but that lot who was in the camp, that I took him to Russia to work, you see. And if she wouldn't have took him out, he would have been in Russia to die, I suppose, in building up the cities. They took a lot of young people there to build the cities, what they smashed, what I reckon the Germans smashed. And of course, after we met, and of course after we married, when we knew that she gonna migrate, we married, and while we was waiting, everything separates with Australia, you know, before they sent me a word, eligible or not. And because it took a hell of a long time, about 9 months, and while we was waiting, because we was working a bit, Werner, you know, and we had only one room in a barrack. In that barrack was about 42 rooms, and in every room was another family. And there were 300 kids up and down the passage. And because we used to do night work in our room, making skis, making little small hand-drawn wagons, and we used to take them out to the farms and exchange them for food to get a bit of more food in. Food was very, very scarce.
What sort of food? Like food or stuff to make food?
Potatoes, a bit of flour, a bit of potatoes, maybe, if we're lucky, get a bit of bacon. Otherwise you couldn't get nothing. You see, and of course she gave up smoking and I gave up smoking, and we changed our cigarette cards into sugar or butter or something like that. Otherwise you never had a chance to buy. One stage there was one loaf of bread up to 20 marks. It was very, very scarce. Living was very, very drastic. But we got through gradually.
And she already had 3 kids?
Yeah, she had 3 kids, yeah. And of course when I start working and I had the full pie, you see, before that I had no full pie. I had only what I used to pay a soldier, 5 shillings a day. But then I had the full blacksmith pie, and I was helping here what I could from then on. Until we migrated. Because we had to live in that one room for at least 3 years before finally the immigration starts. No, Gerda and I was already married, but still in Germany, and we had to stay strict on the ration. And cause I made a box quick, so we could lock it in. I made a little box and made it, and cause I had the hinges outside, not from the inside, but outside on, you see. And I thought I never gonna touch it, you see. And anyhow, but I didn't worry about the lock. You see, Werner was already big enough to realize. And he took the screwdriver and took the hinges off. And got the lid off. And of course, we had, what I was mainly after really was, I was meat hungry, you see. And there was no way we could get meat. But the guy was dried meat in a powder, in a packet. So you can make the soup or stew tastes a little bit like meat, but it's not meat. And I bloody well ate that, that I ate that packet of powder. And then we had nothing until next time when we get again. And that guy was a packet for a month. That's what happened that time, you see. And of course, beside the bread, Gerda had in there, I ate that. What should have lasted us for 2 days, and they ate it in once. You see? Because I still was hungry, but I wasn't really that hungry that I had to eat that, But that's what happened. And of course I was working in a factory. We was making tar paper and masonite and that, and I was looking after the machinery. Who done the tar papers and the masonite, the presses and that. I was looking after that. And when it was through that I'm going, then, because that was very helpful to me, the firm I was working, and they offered me a truck, and I was able to have so many big boxes filled with whatever I have, see, and they hopped in and they made me the boxes, like they had a building as well. I was building houses, that same firm. And the carpenters hopped in and they made me those boxes. And because I took a wood staff and I took about 4 axes and a lot of other tools, simple tools only, not electric ones or anything like that, hand tools. Because I thought if we come here, we might gotta land in the bush and gotta start a house, building a house or something. I brought even nails and hinges with me to start off. But when I came here, because I never had to use all that, because they was much more advanced here than I ever realized when I read the pamphlets. And nothing such things happened, and everything came the way the agreements had been signed, like between me and the government. The government was reckoned they're gonna find a roof overhead for the family, and I might have to work away until I find something. And so my and the older son Werner, of course, we had to go away work. He worked in Colac and I worked in Bendigo, cleaning streets, and he was working on the phone lines in it. And when the 2 years was over, before the 2 years was over, I found a house. It was only stumped down, and it had no walls inside. It had hessian that was all pulled out, and I was working repairing that house on weekends, and for pie I had the week rent free. I was living in that house for 9 months. In the meantime, I met a very nice friend, Terros, Vic Terros family, and they offered me the back garage in their place, and we hopped in and built him a garage on the front, his house, and he had another old building there. We pulled that down, and I built on a kitchen and a laundry and bathroom together, and we lived in that backyard there for that 4 or 5 years. And in the meantime, I looked for a block of land, and of course the land department was very, very helpful too. They let me rent in a block for 3 years, and if I build a house in 3 years, and then I might get freehold. And so I took it on, and it was 10 bob a year rent. And I started building the house, and I had it finished by 3 years, and I moved in. And then afterwards, as it was said that I might get freehold, I did might get freehold, and I said the bob I paid rent, it was included in the payment. And then only I had a bit bad luck that my wife I migrated with took sick in 1955, no 54, and in 1956 she died of breast cancer. And I lived on in this place in Holsworth Road for another 3 years, and then I decided to remarry again. So I married again, and I married Violet Louisa Watson, and she had 2 children with her at that time, and I had still 2 boys, and of course we lived in that place until the house was paid off. It took me 18 years to pay it off. I had a loan through Mr. Perro. He was manager at the building society, and I had a loan from there and finished it. And then, of course, when we married, we decided to have a house together in 2 nines, more or less, So she sold her place and I sold my place. I sold my place to my son, Paul, and because the English they say Paul, not Paul.
Oh.
And they say, what is your name, Paul? He say Paul. And she sold her place, somebody from Melbourne bought it. And then we bought, my second son had a house for sale and we bought his house in Eimer Street. And that's where we live there at present. Although my wife died again and I'm on my own now. We moved here in 1970 and it was about 10 years ago, a little bit longer than 10 years, almost 20 years ago, when she had a stroke, and I had her home for 8 years while she had a stroke, and then she went in the encodal for 9 months because they thought that she will die any day. And she didn't die for 9 months before she died in the encodal hospital. And because I am now on my own for the last 10 years, coming to 9 years. It'll be 10 years in 98. She died in 88. And it's coming to 98. It's been 9 years in September. That's all. I added on that garage. The garage wasn't there. It's a double car garage. And that driveway wasn't level. I leveled it off. That driveway. You see that was 4 foot down like here. I built that garage over the top, the small one. And that small one was the garage there on the back. And then I shifted there and made a field house out of it. And that first little shed is my dog house. And that's another storage room, trailer and my lawnmower. And the backyard is my veggie garden. And I add on that veranda since I retired, that big veranda. And I built that room, that bedroom on. You see, that was an outside house, and I made it level on the back, on a slope like that. And I had a block in with a big hammer and tore it off and shifted it that way. And built those walls to keep up the dirt for the schoolyard. And made that fence with a concrete wall in it. I made the job and I paid for the material. Bought things only replaced it with new. And that's my mulch pit.
You did all this yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I done all that concrete work and everything and let card in soil. The truck be dumping it there on the corner through that other block. And I was carting it in by wheelbarrow. Because the old garage I used for the file house here, I erected it here. And got us 2 pens. In one I used to have die old chickens, rise and die old chickens, and in the other one was the lion chooks. And I had plenty eggs for my own use, and had even some always for mites to sell. Some eggs.
What can you tell me about my dad?
Oh, well, your dad had not such a very sweet life because it was hard life. We had to put up with hardship because first we had to live in that garage, 6 of us, for a while, and then because Werner got married and he built himself a house not far where I built mine, and he got married and settled. When he had a garage built, he married and lived in his garage first while he was building his house. And I was building my house the same time, and it took me 3 years to build it. And before I get it finished, you know. And of course, Dad, he, when he was only 7-year-old, he came to me and he said he wants to learn the music. Yeah, all right. And what? And he said, can you buy me a trumpet? I said, all right. Who can I teach you in it? And he said, oh, I'm joining the Eagle Oak band, brass band. And he did too. And I bought him that trumpet. And he was there quite a few years, and I taught him I actually taught him all the music, the Eagle Oak brass band. And anyhow, then later on I organized another band, him and with another boys, Ellen, I forgot now his name.
North?
And one was
North?
North, Ella North, and
Harrington?
Teddy, I've forgotten the names, you know.
Harrington?
Harrington, yeah, Teddy Harrington. And Shaw was the singer. Anyhow, there was 4 or 5 of them. And of course, that went on quite very well there for a while. And of course, he came to me and he said, before I even organized all that, he said, Dad, I need a guitar. And I bought him a Spanish guitar. I thought that he gonna sing on his own or something. But then he joined them, and it was one of those electronic guitars. And it was $380. And the amplifier was about $1,100. Anyhow, I bought for Marian a Byton accordion for her to learn, and she wouldn't learn. She had that boyfriend, and she just wouldn't take any lessons. So I tried that in, that accordion, and bought that guitar and that amplifier for him, which was that time altogether around 1300 or something, or 1400. And I went pretty well. I had quite a lot of jobs in it. But in the meantime, more and more bands like that popped up, and things never went the same. And then, of course, when they start get married, their wife had influence too. And of course, they sort of fell apart. And then another thing was that Bill Allen, like the father-in-law to Bill Allen North, he intended to build a nightclub in it, and they're supposed to play in that nightclub. But then he got fined by the taxation department twice running, 2 years running, with $35,000, and that fell away then, and he couldn't build it anymore. And then, of course, gradually the whole band fell apart, and then, of course, I suppose with that was the same when he had finished his apprentice and he decided, instead working on his job at the railways, he dropped it and he joined the army. And he was in the army for 5 years, until your mother was sick and tired, always shifting behind him all the time. And her father came one day to my place and he said, the marriage is on the brink. And I said, what is wrong? And he said, well, she's sick and tired always. When he once, like he always looking forwards for those shifts. He liked that. And he get shifted from one place to another, way up to Townsville and God knows where. And she, by the time she catches up, takes 3 months. And she didn't want it anymore. And I said, what we gonna do? Well, I said, what you gonna do about it? I don't know what to do. And anyhow, they reckon that they're gonna write a letter to the defense minister and see whether he can be discharged. And I say, okay with me, because in the first place I didn't want him to go in the army. I wanted him to continue his job at the railways, because he was a welder, and he done his apprentice there, and he would have been there to die even yet. But he didn't like that sort of job, and he just wanted to change. And anyhow, they wrote that letter and it worked. And they called him to the storeroom, because he thought he gonna get another lot to shift somewhere. and I said, "You're going home, boy. You're going home." And I think he had a shock. And because I discharged him. Otherwise, Gail was reckoned that it gonna be a divorce or whatever. She said, I can't put up anymore with that. And that's how he had to give up the army then. But I didn't like him myself at all, him joining the army. I knew how the armies are. I knew they have to shift a lot. But he was a bit hard to listen, He had his own ideas. some people might and they're living in the army, I know that too, but I know a friend is still in the army, and of course he married June's sister, Morgan's, like June's sister, and they got married, and instead on the honeymoon that night, they went off boats to Malaysia, and he was stationed there, and he was there, must have been at least 3 or 4 years, and when they came back, they had already 2 children. And of course, he was stationed in Queensland, and he had a house there from the army. And I suppose they still live in there. And he was twice sent to Cambodia, to that war, twice, and always came home all right, and yet from the workshop there was some compulsory called, and I know 2 of them never came back. One especially I knew well, Thompson. He never came back. His mother is still alive, and he never came back. He got killed there. And but Dad always wanted to go to Cambodia too, to Vietnam, to that way Vietnam, not Cambodia, but Vietnam war, when that was on. And anyhow, I said to him, I said, look, there is not imitation bullets when you have exercise in the army. I say everything is real. It's bloody real. And you don't forget that, I say. And if you go there and you lose an arm or 2 legs or what, you only have to blame yourself if you volunteer. If you must go by the government, then it's different. If the government calls you to fight, then you gotta go and fight. But I say, don't go voluntary. And so he never went voluntary, and the government didn't need him, so he never had to go. I say, don't think that our day is playtime. There is no playtime there. Everything is real. I say, you might one day really gonna see a war. And it's all real. The bombs and bullets, and they fly anyway. They don't pick wherever they can hit. That's it. You might be not dead, but you get a arm blown off or a leg blown off from the booby traps and it. I said, don't think. Even we was working on the trenches, in how many got caught on those sort of things, on the bombs and it. They thought they were right in the trench, and they crawled as close as to the wall. But cause the bomb won't kill if it's not near you. Because when they explode upwards like that. And you see, if a bomb goes on a house, it goes through the roof and then explodes, and everything goes like that, shatters. And that's how they work, I say. And that's why way back home, everybody had in the backyard a zigzag refuge, sort of as a bunker. It was an open bunker. But the bomb got a hit right on it. If it's 30 foot away, you'll still be alive here in that groove, because it goes like that. And then the air can cut your eardrums and you might be deaf or anything. But if you, we say 100 or 200 feet away, you'll be all right. Even the air won't bother you anymore. Bomb, the terrible thing. And then, because they thrown a lot of those little bombs, they running on the ground and burning basically. Yeah, well, I'm glad that time that he married Gail and she's quite a nice girl and I hope I'm glad that he had to give up the dam and they settled in and work together now. And I hope they still be making all right there where they are now. Because he sort of didn't like welding, I don't think. But he was cleaning carriages at the railway station. And I said to him, I said, that's not a future. I said, you got to learn a trade. Because a tradesman always gets about $10 more a week than a ordinary worker. And anyhow, he went and he done the apprenticeship, but he didn't carry on though. I suppose he forgotten a bit with the welding since he left. Because a guy was asking me what he should do. I gave him a piece to make in a factory where he wanted a job. And he's supposed to do overhead welding and vertical welding, and that's very hard. You got to have a lot of experience for that. And she said, what should he do to weld it? And I said, nothing he can do. I said, that's your own experience you got to have. That's the trouble. You see, I could do those sort of things because I worked all my life on it. First as blacksmith, and then I took on boilermaker jobs. But that's how it goes. When you're on a job, stick to it.
When you came out to Australia, did you come out by boat?
Oh yeah, by boat. Nelly they called it. It was a German trooper boat, used to carry troops. And there was 1,500 migrants on, only, without the 200 or so crew they had on. And of course on the boat, Gerda took sick the first hour we left on Italy, seasick. Oh, she was seasick, terrible, right through the trip. She thought all what she can enjoy and she couldn't enjoy it. And she was in the hospital room at all times. And I only had to take her every day for an hour or so to the deck, to the fresh air. I just take her on my shoulder and up the stairs I go and put her on the, because you couldn't on the bottom, because you're too close to the water, and sometimes when the sea was rough, the bloody water went over the deck, over the bottom deck. It couldn't go in our compartments because they had tight doors, you see. But if you sit there, the water just splashes over you. Sometimes it's all right and sometimes not. But you couldn't take a sick people there. I had to take her to the top deck, always. And we was traveling 25 days and nights. We had only 2 stops, one in port side, and that was only a stop for about 3 hours. And I took some food and some water in, and then they tugged us through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea, and from there we went, we came to Byton, and I took more food and water from there, and then we right to Australia. From there we turned into the Indian Ocean, and we traveled only about 5 days or so, and it was rough water. Indian Ocean is a rough water. I used to, every night before I go to bed, I used to go out and you watch down on the side of the ship. There's a big hole. You think that the boat can roll over. And the next thing, the bloody huge wave come back, and phew, you had to go for your life sometimes. It goes over the bottom deck. But I wasn't sick. I worked in the dining room all the time, cleaning up, because people was bringing up everywhere. And the dishes we had, they couldn't break. You see, they wouldn't break. They're not plastic, but they're nylon stuff. Very, very hard. They don't break. They fall down. They don't break. And I washed the dishes in it, but just with a house in it and the floor in it, because it was brought up everywhere. Half the people were sick on the boat. It's easy. Werner wasn't. Werner worked in the kitchen all the way through, and they paid us with American dollars. And when we came to Australia, and we was anchored about 2 miles off Melbourne, we was anchored for 2 days. But it was dead scenery. You couldn't see much of Melbourne, foggy all the time, and that was those 2 days what we was anchored there. And I said, Melbourne here, yeah, we here, where are here? Was no Melbourne. You couldn't see nothing. Sometimes you could see only the electric posts and that, but nothing much else. We had to get up at that 4 o'clock in the morning, had breakfast early, and we had to walk down from the ship and walk to the train. And in the train, and it was still foggy, and you couldn't see of Melbourne much. And they took us out through Seymour to Bendigo. And Seymour, they had the stop, and the guy was 2 scones and a cup of tea for breakfast again, salted. And then we went as far as Bendigo. The guy was another cup of tea and 2 scones. And then we went straight to Bendigo. And by the time we unloaded, and we loaded on a siding, not no station, just on a siding. Must have been specially made. And and of course, whoever was able to walk had to walk, and all the rest was carted. And of course, Gerda was so long in hospital and she was pretty down. So she was going with a bus, and she had young Paul with him, and we all had to walk. Marian, Werner, and Lothar, we had to walk. Now, I think she had Lothar with her. No, he was walking with us. That's right, he was walking with us. And we had to walk from there to Bendigo, from there to Bendigo 4 miles. We had to walk. And we got there about 11 o'clock at night time. And of course I didn't muck around much there. And you from Yugoslavia, you go there. And you Latvia, you there. And you Austria, you there. And like that, you know. And they sorted us out, and then somebody came and took us around to the rooms where we're gonna sleep, you know. And then they took us to the window where we got the forks and knives in it. And then, of course, they took us to the dining room. And when we came in the dining room, they had them long tables, very long tables on every table on the end, a huge basket sliced bread, white bread, you know. And Paul said, "There, is that for us?" And I said, "Of course it is for us." "Does, shut up," I said. It's for us, yeah. And anyhow, we had a good meal that day on it, that light, but it was good. And anyhow, after we had the meal, they was singing out, who wants a bit of help. And I thought that I lifted, and then I said, "Oh, I had to have another chop, if it's another chop there." No. Yeah, come on, another chop. And Gerda said, "You shouldn't do that." She said, "That's not very nice." And I said, "Oh, well, they say it's only going to be chopped out, so why not eating it?" And by G, on the next day, they was looking for volunteers working around the camp, and I volunteered. And we was loading the scraps and it to the truck to take away, you know. And I tell you what, there was a lot of stuff bloody chucked out. And I said to Gerda then, I said, "You see, that's what happened. I seen it because I was working there." and of course I was doing that job for almost 3 weeks, here and there, so around the yards and it. And then they called us in the office, and I said, "Now you got to take goodbye from your family, because your family gonna go to New South Wales in the camp, in Cowra, and you got to go to Bendigo. That's in Victoria." He said, "You're not outside the country, you're here." And anyhow, all right. Werner and I, we had to go, you see. Anyhow, we came here, and I sent him to Colic. And I was camped in the football ground there, in the tents. And because I was stationed with Doyle, I was first stationed in the Fortuna camp for 3 months. And in the meantime, they found me a job for Doyle, carting gravel from the creek. And I was working there maybe 2 months or so. And of course the spring line came and flooded the bloody creek and couldn't cart the gravel. And then he sent me with a dry to the council, cleaning streets. And I done then the rest of the year cleaning streets. And then afterwards, he wanted me back again to cart gravel from the creek. And the council people said, "Oh, you not have to go if you don't want to. You can stay here." You tell them you just stay here. And I thought, oh, that cart and gravel out the creek was a hard job. 2 bob a yard, and with a horse and dry going up the bank like that, you couldn't, you lucky if you could put on a half a yard, and to pull it up. And anyhow, I said to him, I said, oh, I stay here at the council. So he left the horse and dry here at the council, and I was picking up the dirt and carted away all the time to the tip. But when the 2 years contract was over, you see, we signed contract back home that I must keep the first job for 2 years. And I will see that the kids and the wife will have a roof over their head, and the kids will get school immediately. All right, I signed. So I signed and I signed. And that's how it started. But I left the council and I joined Gerda. She was working at the chook factory where I was killing chooks. And I joined her there for a while. They wanted badly. So I had to hang the chooks on the chain outside, in a long chain, and it goes inside, and they kill them there and go through the boiled water and pluck them there and it. I never had to do that, but I had only to hang them on. But then that Mr. Green, somebody was telling him, and I think it was Mrs. Roberts, because I knew Mr. Roberts then. I met him, and afterwards I took him to build the frame, you see. He was a carpenter from England. He only came from England. And he was, for the bucket, he never said bucket, bucket and stutz. The studs, and stutz, he said. He talked funny, and anyhow, I think his wife, she worked as secretary at our office. And I only found out afterwards that it was his wife, you see, and I think she told him that, oh, what's about that German welder? He's a welder. And of course, he came to Perro's place where I lived on the back. And strange people I never could understand properly. Perro's, I could talk to them a bit, in that time. And I said, oh, what that man want from me? Anyhow, he talked with Green, and he said, he wants you a job, he got a job for you, welding. Oh, I said, that's all right. That's all right. And anyhow, he said to Mr. Perro, bring him over on Saturday morning, and I give him a test. And if I think he's good enough, then he can start work, see. And in the morning, Saturday morning, Perro took me in his car there to the Eagle Hawk engineering work, and he brought me 2 lumps of flat iron, and he said, weld them together. I said, okay. And of course, I said, can I use the grinder there? And he said, yes. And I prepared them properly, make a nice way from both sides. And I weld them both ways. That will break? No, I said, won't break. It will bend here and here, but it won't break there. And he took it and he put it under the press, bloody thing, and put there right on the weld, something on it. And I said, oh, I hope it's not gonna bloody well crack off. And by the way, it didn't. It didn't. He had a truck in there. He had part of it on the back, panel beating, you see. And he said, that man brought his truck here. You see that crack here on the mudguard, about that long? Can you weld that? Yeah, so you can weld that. Because I started off and I welded and welded and welded and welded till I finished. You think that all right, that one break? And I said, no, one break. And anyhow, I never had to finish that because that was all the penalty that's afterwards. They had to grind it and put the putty on it and put the pine on it. And he said, will not break? No, I said, not break. The next day, when the man took his truck and he said, you said that's not break, and it's broke. And I said, no, it's not broke. I don't believe it. Where is the truck? And then he laughed and he said, no, it's all right. And he said, come Monday. And I said, you can't come Monday. I'm gonna give 1 week notice, and I come Monday week. And then he said, all right, Monday week. And I worked there then for 4 or 5 years until he sold his shop. He sold it to Longy. And Lothar made his apprenticeship at Longy, you know. And I had 2 choices. Longy was reckoned he would put me on in his shop. Or, in the meantime, I met Bonnie's brother quite a few times while we lived there. And he was a spring maker there at the railways. And he said, why not come into the railways? And so I decided to go to the railways, and I got the job. And I was there for 21 years. Now, I never had a day wasted for looking for a job in my lifetime. I was a bit in trouble when I had to switch from blacksmith to boiler maker. I had a bit of trouble because I had to run to the school regularly, twice a week. Twice a week for about 2 or 3 hours every night. And because you had to learn the theory of the arc welding and everything, you know, and what rods to use for each job. You see, different rods, different jobs and all that. And because I had to learn that. And I passed it, and I had the documents, and I got the job at the railways. And of course, then when we moved in, we wasn't too long in, and Marion got married. Marion was only 18 years old when she got married. Her mother didn't want her to marry yet, and especially not that man. And she wouldn't give the consent, and I went to the law court and I got the consent, and I married. And I said to her, oh, well, if that is the way, just let them marry. And so they married, and I moved out. And he had a flat there somewhere in Spring Gully, and I was living there. But I went in the honeymoon, and I was about 3 weeks away in honeymoon. And they came back, and that night when they came back, she had a fierce bash. And after that, he bashed her all the time, and she used to come home many times, you know, and when she had already the kids coming back home, and half the furniture and that, and all the time in and out. And until she finally cleared out with Ron. And then I, moved I cleared out to Maryborough, and of course nobody knew where I was. I never knew myself where I was, really. Not for a month. And finally I had word that I in Maryborough. And anyhow, later I got married, and of course Marianne was really on a good stick from then on. She had a real good husband then. That wall I had to build to build up that side of the driveway. I had to lift it 4 feet, that side driveway, because it was right down like that. It was a horrible driveway here. See, now I got flowers all over the damn place. It had a wooden fence here. And when the council might have gutters here, they might have straight narrower and the nicer strip wider. And there was a big earthen gutter. They filled it in, and they filled nearly half the fence in as well on the other end. And I say, how you think I gonna paint that fence? Oh, that's not our worry, that's your worry. You see, that's it. And so I pulled the wooden fence out, and I built that brick fence. That's how we got here, a brick fence. The house was like that on the front. Of course, we bought awning sold. There was no awning. There was no awnings and no fly screens either. We put them on when we bought the place.
So did you get a lot of insects flying in the house before you got fly screens?
Oh yes, it was a pest with the flies in it, but we done it very quick. I had frames all in the garage, hanging on the wall, but no wire on. And cause when I seen those frames hanging there, I just hopped in and then bought the wire, because I done it myself. Put the wire on and push them, fit them all in. Everywhere in the window. Only one I have to make was that long window in the last bedroom there. Of course, that's all my own job. You see, I might empty that fence, the house fences, and you see that wall here. That's 11 brick high. I had to keep the ground up. And that, I made that iron fence first, and I put big rocks on along here, and then let the concrete go over. You see, and that's holding it, and of course reinforcement oil underneath. And that's how everything together. And I had to come in with the fence. You see, crooked like this. I had to come in with the fence, because if I would have built it there on the border, I had to build it on specification, which would have cost me $3,500. And the way I done it cost me $1,300. Because they said if I go away from that fence so much, I can do it myself. And that's what I done. That's still, my border is, that other fence runs, you see. But I built that other fence after. I built that one first. In the garage, Road, everything. I done everything myself, you see. It was in my line. It was in my pride. That's why I minded all. And because Dad was reckon he gonna make 3 or 4 guides there or something, and I don't know whether he ever did them, made them or not.
How old was Dad when you came out?
I think he must be about 3.5, or 2.5, 2.5 most likely, 2.5 I think, because when we left the boat, he was still on the breast. But as soon as she came in the hospital, in the ship hospital, they took him off. And of course they kept him in that room too, because I wouldn't know how to feed him, because I wasn't taught to it. And I said, they're gonna look after him, instead me. You work in the kitchen. And we're gonna look after the kitty. And that's what I did. You see, because I wouldn't know how to feed him and what food given to him and everything. You see, because she couldn't do it. And so there was bouts in that hospital room until we got here. I think he was a little bit over a year on the breast because she thought it's better have him on the breast while we're traveling. But that wasn't the case now. She took sick too quick. You could still see the horizon in Italy. We left only a spouse hour or hour and a half. You still could see the horizon with the naked eye. And she already took sick. And bringing up did nothing, you know. People can't keep their food in when they say sick. I never had it, Werner never had it, all the kids never had it. But she had it. And she had it badly. The main thing was that very good food on the ship. Oh, the salamis they had there. All sorts of salami you like, you can pick. and I had pretty good, I had still my own taste, and I had pretty good taste in it, and I really hopped into it. And the food was absolutely gorgeous. Real good food there. No complaints about that. And Werner, of course, he was working in the kitchen all the time. But when we came to Australia, we wasn't allowed to take the American dollar to the shore. And yet they paid us with American dollar. And we was traveling 25 days. You see, that was 25 days pay. And anyhow, but we was allowed to go in the canteen and buy what we liked there, what I have, for that money. And of course, Gerda and I, we went in the canteen and we bought towels, bath towels and that sort of thing. And a good job that we did. And soap and things like that we bought for that money. And Werner bought a big box of cigarettes for that money. When we came out the boat and we had to go through the customs, we was all right. We never had to pay nothing for our towels. But he had to pay so much for his cigarette stuff, £4 something, and we had no pounds. And he lost all his cigarettes. They confiscated them. 3 weeks we had no pie in the camp. The food in that was very well, no worries. And but then, as they sent us to work, they called us in the office, and they gave a pound each. For me a pound, for each one a pound, to start off. And as you get your first pie, you got a pie for the family in the camp. All right. How? Oh, you send a money order, you know. All right. And anyhow, I sent about 2 money orders. Like the army was paying us there for the job. I was cleaning bathrooms and lavatories and that, and a rifle range and that sort of thing I was cleaning. And Werner, of course, he had to go there on the lines. And I had to pay my board at the camp, in the Fortuna camp, and the money order I had to send to the camp for Gerda there, for the other kids, for Lothar, Marianna and her. And anyhow, and Paul, of course, because Paul was still a kid. But anyhow, it wasn't long, and she wrote me a letter and said, don't worry anymore sending money, because I got a job here. She worked there in the kitchen. She had a job there in the kitchen, and Mrs. Thorn used to be another German lady. She was married to Paul Thorn here in Bendigo. And she looked after Paul while Gerda was working in the kitchen, because she had a little son like Paul too. And she stayed home with her little son, you see. And she looked after Paul as well. And that was really good. And of course Gerda said, save everything and make sure that we get home soon, you know. And so I did. I was saving, and of course then Mr. Pero offered me his big garage in that old building he had in his yard. He said, you pull that down and build on, and I pay for the material, he said. And he bought flooring boards and that, so I could put in floors in the garage. And where the double door was, I put a bigger window in, and the other end I put a window in, second-hand windows. And the garage had a good roof, it had a new roof on, and of course we cleared it out with plaster sheet ourselves. Pero helped, you know, we both worked there, Werner helped. And then we lived there until we shifted in our house then. Well, and that's why I bought that block there, you see. That Mr. What was his name, Johnson, he was going to sell me that block. And Mr. Pero said, don't stop on it. You see, Mr. Pero was helpful all the time. We go in the land department and we found out what that block is, who owns that block. Because you don't pay the money too quick here, you lose it. And anyhow, we went in the lands department, and I saw Mr. Johnson got there. They brought a map and house was around there, the empty block. I saw next to that little house here, that empty block there. He wants £50 for it. And I said to me, don't pay a penny. he leased that land once, but he's not more leasing it. And so don't pay him, but if you want the block, we can rent you one. We rent you for 3 years and build a house. If you don't build a house in 3 years, we take the block back. All right? $10 a year rent. If you don't build your house in 3 years, you lose your $30. If you, not 30 shilling, 10 shilling it was. £1.50, that's right, £1.50. You lose that, and if you build the house, that goes in the payments when we make it free. It's a deal. And that was handy. You see, I could always walk up and down from Paris in work. You see, after work I go and dig all the bloody stump holes so that I not have to dig it. And I dug about 94 bloody stump holes. And once I had them dug, and then I had to shift about 3 peppercorn trees, because I was in the way. And then, because when we had the $500 saved, we start hoping in to build a house. And we got that Mr. Tom, what was his name? Tom Roberts, yes, Tom Roberts. And his mate, and I, and in 3 weeks that the frame was built. He said I had them for £4 a day. Once the frame was built, the noggins and all that, I done it myself then. And when the frame was built, I was building all the noggins in everywhere, on the skating boards and everywhere. And took me quite a while to do it by hand. And in the meantime, I was ordering the tiles for the roof. And I made a deal with a pottery. They made the tiles and I put them on. And anyhow, I made a deal with them that every 3 months so much pie every 3 months. And of course, by the time they made the tiles and by the time they put them on in it, I never had much left, only about 2 payments or something. And that was paid off. And I was very happy, and I was happy. And then, of course, I went to the bricks, and I needed 3,000 bricks. And he said, oh, you have to wait about 2 months. I said, 2 months? I want them now, today, tomorrow. No, you can't get them so quick. And we used to have a parliamentarian here on crutches, you know. And anyhow, Perro took me to him. And he said, look, the man needs 3,000 bricks to put the chimneys up. He's battling here. And I told him 2 months. And anyhow, he wrote a letter to him. And by gee, I tell you what, I had the bricks in a week's time. The 3,000 bricks. And then I had the bloke who was driving the grinder on the council. I knew him, elderly bloke he was. And he was a bricklayer as well. And he was driving the grinder on the roads, you know, the big grinder. And on weekends, I said, what's about building 2 chimneys? Okay, he said, you got to help me. Yeah, I said, I will. anyhow, he built the big chimney for the kitchen. Was a very white one, that boy, and then the lounge room in it, and then I had a long break because I bought the weatherboards and I nailed them on myself, and then after that I bought all the flooring boards and I nailed them in myself. And then I bought all the windows, and the big windows Werner and Vic helped me to hang in, and the other louver windows I made gradually myself. And then I bought 2 doors, and Vic Perro helped me to hang them in. That was the back door and the front door, and I could lock the place. And then I gradually made all the cupboards and hung all the doors inside, and then I got the plasterers to put the plaster sheet in, and I was stopping it up myself. They showed me how to do. I was stopping it up all myself, and then
you got it done on time.
Then Gerda and I was finding, and shifted in.
On time?
Hmm?
On time?
Yeah, oh yeah, on time, and they put that $30 into the payments, and it was $50. The land department told me $50 the block that time, and I was happy. And then, and the building society told me, once I got the frame up and the 2 chimneys built and the tides on, we give you money to pay all your bills and buy all your furniture, what you want and everything, and you pay gradually out. But then afterwards, you see, she had that bloody little lump there, and I had to operate, and she died, and it took me alone. Then it took me bloody 18 years to pay back the rest of money. I took on £2,250. And in those days I had about £30 a fortnight. But I saved hard, and in 18 years I had it off. There one stage when I had that accident, the car knocked me off the bike. You see, I was off work for 6 months and I was a bit worried. I thought I might lose the house, But then Werner hopped in and helped me out a bit until the compensation came through. And because it was helping me going to work, you see. And when that came through, I paid Werner off and everything came right. Oh, everything is all right now. I got everything here all right. And it's not very hard to keep it going because, you see, that's nice and level, that part. The front is not level properly. I wanted somebody to come and level it. The council reckoned I got no money for to do that job. Got to be careful not wasting their money what they already paid on the house, because a house is the main asset in your lifetime. That's your main asset, if you can achieve it. If you can buy a house, pay it off, and pay the car off, whatever you got, before you retire, then you all right on the pension, like I am, for instance. I had the house paid off, I had the car paid off. And I started I was doing still jobs around, like I built that veranda, but that day on the small money, they might be $1,000 or so, and you had a bit of saved money, and you go along with it. But really saving, you can't much save on pension. And of course Werner, look, Werner now, I'm very sad, he's in trouble. He had to mortgage his house because he was overdraft $35,000. And $100 rent he got to pay weekly, and that's too much for a pension, you know. He will while he is still mobile and that can make here and there a few bob, is all right. But when he comes to my age, I said to him, when he comes to my age, after the next 21 or 22 years, he'd be lucky if he gets that off. And then the house might be his fully. But if he don't reach that age, then he's no good. He be scraping and looking for $1 to make all the time, which I not have to do. You see, I had a bit of superannuation, and I get a bit of pension to it, and I'm right. And because the house was paid off, and the car was paid off, although the car is going a bit old now, it needs a bit of repair, but I got only 4 years to go. So they reckon, the police reckon, you got about 4 years to go. That's when I am 90, I suppose I might have to call it off, see? So, but it don't worry me. If I live another 4 years, I might be dead by then anyhow. Because I'm getting old and weary and tired. You see, and you can't go forever. But as long as I can, I will stick it out here. I don't go anywhere in a home or anything. You see, they off and on they come and ask me whether I want Meals on Wheels. And I say, no, why should I? So long my 10 fingers work, my legs drag the body around, why should I? I can cook myself, I can go, especially the car I drive to the railway place, you get dinners there, reasonable price, $5, $6. Or I go to Long Gully to the RSL, it's the same thing. I'm a member there now, and I'm glad too. And you have a glass of beer, and you have your dinner, and you're right. And I got a nice friend here, and we can talk, go out together a bit, and that's what we do. I go and get her every day, and some days she can't come, and some days she comes, and she cooks always dinner. And that gives me a chance to do around the place a bit. Oh, we're doing it now for a year. It's already a year gone. And you see, I really met at that time when I made that trip to Brisbane. And to meet all my side of family, and last Christmas we met her side of family, and we had dinner there. They came and picked us up. Quite nice people too. Of course, she got one daughter living with her, and she is divorced. Her husband cleared out like Kelly's husband. He cleared out to Brisbane. Hey, you looking for me? She's lonely, you see.